Athletic Football Show.
Welcome to the Athletic Football Show. I'm Robert Mays. Joining me tonight, it's my good friend Nate Tice. Nate, how you doing, buddy?
It's a day that both of the teams we love really let us down. I actually thought you were going to be sitting here in silence, so I was getting ready to do the intro and go, "Hi, my name is Nate Tice. This is the Athletic Football Show. How you doing, bud?" Oh, that was a Thursday night game.
All right, where do you want to start?
I don't know.
Because I want to start with
you lead us.
Bud. I want your opinion on this.
Yeah.
How bad is it really? I think this is multi-pronged. How bad is the Bears offense really? What is the root cause of why it's so bad? And can this get better?
Like most bad offenses, it starts with the line. I think that is then and there where you just start with everything. And I think other than all the there's a lot of things. So I'm trying to rank them in my brain.
There's a ton of things, and that's why this is difficult to do.
Yes, the play that stands out to me. Let's all start though. It's like we know this Bears team was not going to be good. This is a full-blown, more or less rebuild team. But the thing is they already have a quarterback that the old regime drafted, so it's a weird situation. But a snapshot of where this bad play is, and I do think that the Bears staff tries to do a lot of the right things, even if sometimes doesn't lead to good results. But was the fourth down that they were about to go for it at the end of the game, and they got the delay game. And that is the center just literally not snapping the ball when Justin Fields is trying to yell to him to snap the ball. And that is like just clapping and yelling. And that is just a snapshot of so many other issues that this team has. They don't have players. Like they really don't. They just do not have guys that they can lean on. At the end of the game, those are two gameable throws that you can come down with, and it's Mooney has made some nice catches, but that's the difference between having stars like a guy like you watch the Chiefs play and Travis Kelce. I know he's a tight end comparing him to a receiver, but you watch him come down with balls. He's even a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster coming down with throws that are low and away. It's the room for error is so unbelievably small, and Justin Fields is still learning to be an NFL quarterback. So it's just like it's a lot of bad. It's hard. It's hard to pinpoint what's one thing, but it's a lot of bad play that goes on, especially with the Bears offense.
It's so hard to diagnose like what's actually the root cause of it. And when I'm watching that, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to parse the quarterback play from everything else around him. And that's so hard to do.
So hard.
But let's talk about the first drive. Okay, on the first drive, he has that end breaker to the right. I can't remember who was there.
Yep.
And he just refuses to throw it.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there screaming at the TV, like, you have to throw that ball.
Have to throw that.
And so that play happens. But then there are so many moments in that game. Let's rewind a second. Okay. The first half, they're moving the ball. They had two drives inside the 5. One was a huge run, and that's whatever. But they were moving the ball through the air fairly consistently in the first half of the game. I don't have the numbers on it. True doesn't update that quickly. It was all 7 and 8 man protection. All of it.
Yep.
They had 2 guys out in routes, max protection off play action. It's the only way they could move the ball through the air because it's the only way they can hold up. Anytime they have to try to drop back in semi-traditional ways with 5 or 6 guys in protection, especially tonight, they couldn't do it.
Yep.
So you're looking at it. The left side of the offensive line was unwatchable over the course of this game. I'm including the center as the left side of that offensive line as well. So, okay, let's dig into the left side of the offensive line. This was not supposed to be the starting offensive line, but based on the plan that the Bears had and the players that they added this offseason, Lucas Patrick was supposed to play center. He breaks his hand during training camp. So now you have Sam Mustipher come in and starting to play center. Even when Patrick gets back, now he's a swing guard. Let's call him that, okay? Cody Whitehair is supposed to be the left guard. He is not playing in this game. Lucas Patrick had a nightmare game today.
Yes.
A nightmare game. Braxton Jones had a really bad game against Montez Sweat. So let's talk about what the left tackle situation looks like. They drafted Braxton Jones in the 5th round. Could you have found a left tackle in free agency theoretically? Maybe. You could have paid Teron Armstead. He was the one that was theoretically available. Teron Armstead's hurt right now. Teron Armstead is hurt pretty often.
That's his
I understand
issue.
why you wouldn't want to do something like that.
Yes.
So when you're looking at the pool of available tackles outside of that, you don't love it. They didn't have a first-round pick. They could have drafted Abe Lucas in the 3rd round to play tackle for them. There aren't a lot of ways they could have filled that spot.
It's hard to find tackles.
Okay. This team cut the starting left tackle for the Washington team that got a contract extension this offseason because of how well he played last year. The reason that they cut him is because they traded up in the 2nd round to go get Tevin Jenkins. They're like, you know what? We're good. We're going to save $9 million. A guy that has never missed a game during his entire career as a starter. Charles Leno isn't Joe Thomas, but the team building mistakes and the team building missteps, there's so many different ways and so many different reasons that you've arrived at this moment.
Yeah.
And when you drop a quarterback into those circumstances, this is the result that you see. So I don't know how you start this. Is his internal clock feels broken, but he's also dealing with a muddy, disgusting pocket almost immediately every single time he's supposed to drop back and throw. So he is not playing well. He's playing really, really poorly, but it's almost like he's just short-circuited at this point because of everything else that's happening. So offensive design, personnel around him, and the quarterback's own play, it's coming from all of these different directions. And that's why it's so hard to figure out, how do you solve this? Because you're putting out so many different fires in so many different places.
It's so hard because we just talked about right now, is you emphasize tackle play, but as a quarterback, especially a young quarterback, is when you have poor interior line play against a couple of aces that Washington has in Payne and Allen, who are incredible. Payne is playing incredible. Allen is already one of the elite players, but they are playing so well. And how many replays did you see where they're winning instantly? Because now you can't.
Zero time.
So if you have a bad tackle as a quarterback, it's okay. You see Mahomes do it all the time. I'm not calling Orlando Brown bad or Wiley bad, but it's up and out. Justin Fields can't create good habits to step up in the pocket, which I talk about all the time, is that's what you want to see quarterbacks do. You have to lean into the punch. You have to step up into the pocket. He can't even create those habits because it's not there. There's no availability for him to step up and out. That's why he does, and I went on another show talking about this, he does the Madden drop where he keeps fading back. So those sacks become even worse. It's a 14-yard loss. It's a 12-yard loss. It's not a 2-yard loss or a short thing where, he got some guy hawks him down from the back. So you see so many of those. And on top of it, and I get it, what Luke Getsy's trying to do, he's trying to call a lot of high floor plays, a lot of zone runs, a lot of nakeds, a lot of stuff where it hides the offensive line. That's why the drop back stuff is so shit. But this second half in this game, Washington, every time they realized they had an open side, a non-tight end side, and then Fields was doing a bootleg to that side, those DNs were teeing off. It's the old Jim Schwartz wide 9 Detroit Lions that sprinted at the quarterback. And that's why you saw a bootleg is, when you're taught that play as a quarterback, it's supposed to be the safest play. The rule of thumb is get the ball back to the line of scrimmage, either by throwing it away because you're on the move, or just dump it off. It's never supposed to be a sack. And the fact Justin Fields gets pressured on those is astounding, like on half of them. And you could see tonight that it was every time they had an open side where there's no tight end side, those DNs sprinted at Fields. And so that takes away the easy card that this offense has. And then the rest is just, who do you rely on when you want to find a play? It's just, there's so much that just falls apart. Defense did fine. Like Brisker looks great, like all that.
They're
but
fine.
It's just, but just this offensive side of the ball, it's just, they got nothing. They have nothing to lean on. And it's a quarterback that is a big game hunter. Literally that last drive where he had the long scramble, they're going no huddle. So usually when you have a no huddle package of plays, you go like bear 0, bear 1, bear 2. He did bear 0, which I'm going to guess is a quick game kind of concept. He gave a pump signal to Pettis. Justin Fields, in the middle of that, with his offensive line just getting their asses kicked, went for a double move for the win. This guy is a big game hunter, but that's not great because the offensive line sucks so bad and you don't have ball winners down the field. So it's like, it's hard. It's just the worst type of play style with his surroundings right now, and it just kind of compounds itself over a game.
I understand it looks really frustrating. I don't want to like throw Luke Getsy under a bus right now, because I feel like what they're trying to do to solve this makes sense to me.
It makes so much sense.
They're trying to it does, maybe I'm rationalizing it. Maybe that's just a misguided way to look at it. No. It does make sense to me. I get how they got to this point, but eventually, if you can't drop back and throw the ball, it's going to be a huge issue. And here's where I'm at, is that you watch, he's an amazing athlete. Like that last scramble he's an amazing athlete. He's so much better as a runner than I even thought he would be coming into the league, because we didn't see him run that much at Ohio State
at all.
But the fact that that's all he has right now, all he has is his legs. And you see the throw to Pettis for the touchdown. And they're part of me last year when we're doing this and we're trying to hem and haw about this. I'm talking myself into that. I'm talking myself into the mobility. And you're like, he's a rookie. The situation's terrible. Like the internal clock stuff, if that gets better, then you can talk yourself into the highs. The lows are catastrophically bad. Catastrophically bad. I'm not in that place anymore where it's like, oh, look at that throw or look at that scramble. Like what it is down in and down out is horrible right now. And whether or not he was failed or he's the one failing, at a certain point, it ceases to matter. Because if these habits become so bad and so ingrained, there's no getting out of them. And I just don't know if we're at that point yet, or if we get to a place where the interior protection is better. And he just he can work to 1 to 2. He can be just a little bit more, not methodical, but he can just be more comfortable in the pocket. And he's not comfortable at all. He's completely short-circuited as far as his feel for what it's supposed to be like in the pocket right now. I think that's some him, because he wasn't very good at it to begin with, and it's some of the situation that he's been placed in. So he's getting pulled in these two directions, in the wrong direction, and that's where we are right now. And it can get better, but the bar for it to get better and how much needs to change, I think it might be a bridge too far. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do that right now, but he has so far to go, and this situation is so far to go, that I truly wonder if it can ever happen.
Oh man. See, I'm not as down. I'm not optimistic, but I'm not as down. I'm cautiously, there's enough glimpses for it. He just does some things that I'm like, I can't come off of this. But then I remember that example you brought up on the first drive. He's got to rip that dig. It's the same discussion we had with Burrow today on the earlier show, about that the times that where it's a clean pocket, you have to make it happen. You can't just go one and done with your reads and go into scramble mode or go into tuck mode or whatever you want to do. You have to take those chances. And that's the thing, is his bad habits are in a situation that he can't grow. It's practice is one thing. How many times you hear about, and I've brought this up before, but how many times we heard about Tim Tebow fixed his throwing motion? When the bullets are flying, when shit is going on in the pocket, you go back to your baseline. And Fields' baseline is always going to be to hold on to the ball and try to make something happen. And right now, it's not, it can't happen, because there's no room to breathe. There's no room for error down the field. But that's the issue, is that it like you said, it's how do we separate that situation from his bad habits? There's no room for growth.
And it's not about fault. When I say that I don't know if they can pull out of this tailspin, that to me is not just an indictment of Justin Fields. Coming into this year, this looked like in the first half, when it's all 7-8 man protections, just heavy play action, getting him on the move. That is what I wanted the offense to look like coming into the season, because it needed to look like that, right? If you can survive like that for 17 games and you can put him in that exact situation, then maybe what you're talking about with everything else deteriorating around him and those bad habits being compounded, you avoid that. But that can't happen. This is the NFL. At a certain point, you have to drop back 10, 12 times a game in order to be a functional NFL offense. And what it looks like when they're doing that, I'm just so concerned that as he's living in this world for another 10 games this season, the bad habits are going to be so bad that there's just no way to pull out of it when this team has $115 million in cap space next year and a first round pick for the first time in a couple of years. And they have real resources to potentially build up around this thing. If they're picking in the top 5, and there's a quarterback available, and you watch what happened. I understand going a different direction potentially. It's really, really bad. And I was worried about us getting to this point, and we have gotten to this point.
But if they score in those low red zone plays, how would you feel?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It honestly doesn't matter to me. The outcome of the game is independent from what the offense looked like. I'm truly saying that right now. If Mooney catches that ball or he runs that scramble in, I feel the exact same way as I do right now.
No, nothing changes. First half.
It doesn't matter. Nothing changes.
Nothing. Okay.
Nothing changes.
See, that's the thing. I think it is bad, but right now, it's like I'm not like selling the shit, like selling my stocks and Fields. Like I'm not trying to hold on to my priors or anything like that. Have I sold a couple? Yeah, a couple, but I'm still holding on to a few because there's just enough glimpses of a baller, like of a guy like that. He does the hard shit. It's just that's the thing is there's nothing else to lift the floor. It's all him. Justin Fields is the offense with a fun run game once in a while that does some nice things, but it also leads them into a lot of 3rd and 9s, 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 7s, which is literally this offense can't do. This is a team we thought was gonna win 6 games. I mean, just like when we talk about the Lions, it's how we talked about the Lions defense, and we say that we're like, yeah, that's how they're supposed to be. There's not a lot of spending. There's not a lot of talent there. That's how it's be. That's how I feel with this Bears offense. It's like, this is a shit offense. Mooney is your receiver 1. That dude is a receiver 4 in a good offense. A receiver 3. I'll give him a receiver 3 in a good offense.
I don't disagree with that. But if he's in these circumstances for another 10 games, is there any way you can get over the impact that is going to have on you in the way that you can play quarterback? Like you just said, it's impossible for him to grow. It's only getting worse.
Yeah.
It's only getting worse. He had a 17% sack rate coming into this fucking game. It's only getting worse. And if it's going to keep trending in this direction, again, how far he has to go just becomes so far, even if you think it can be better.
You just think it's going to be damaged goods. Like
that's my problem. That is my thought.
That is a thing. That is a real. I want to emphasize that with quarterback play. That is a real thing.
Yes.
You see, seeing ghosts is the joke with Sam Darnold and everything, but I'm not even talking about Sam Darnold. That is a real thing. I've been a backup quarterback. I have lost confidence more times than I'm willing to count because you're just like, holy shit, I can't get rid of the ball. I suck. And I've seen guys just drop off in the NFL because we say seeing ghosts, but their clock, like you put it perfectly. The clock is so screwed up that they just can't even operate. Like it's just so miswired. I mean, look at Wentz. Wentz threw for 99 yards. His clock's so screwed up. Like, and that's the tail slide that these guys can go on because they just can't learn to operate that way. It's hard. That's why a guy like Trevor Lawrence, why I'm optimistic about him is he learns from it seems like he learns from his mistakes and speeding stuff up, but it's also there's mistakes that he makes because he's trying to be too much of a gamer. And it's like, that's what you have to learn from your mistakes.
Different, though. It's so different, Nate.
Their
so
play styles
different because the negative plays on Lawrence is he throws a bad interception every once in a while. Yeah. He never gets sacked. He never puts himself in that situation. When you're getting sacked at this rate, I think it is symptomatic of a problem with who you are internally as a quarterback that I think is really, really hard to fix.
But like a guy like, God, I'm trying to think of a good example.
No one has ever been this bad and gotten to be good. No one ever.
Well, yeah, well, that's true. But I'm just thinking, but there's guys that are in such better situations when they came into the league. This is shit. Like this is as doldrums of an offense as you can be in. And that's why it's tough. It's tough to evaluate because you're just like, oh, you're looking at glimpses of all this stuff. And I get it. I get where you're going because like it looks all negative right now. Like it does because it's like, okay, who's playing center for you? Who's playing guard? Like what is going to fix that? And where are the glimpses? Are you got to hope that you play the Lions? You got to hope you play a team with no pass rush so you can look decent. I mean, against the Vikings, it was one half of good ball, but it's just, it's hard. But that's the thing is that he does enough high end play that I'm willing to bet on it. I really am. Like, I know I'm just like sound like I'm confirming my priors and everything, but it's one of those things that he does shit that's so hard to do. The beautiful go ball and all that. Like, it's so hard to do, but I'm talking out both sides of my mouth because then he doesn't throw the freaking dig on the first drive. And it's like, those clean looks that are supposed to be there, you're supposed to take them. So it's hard for me. I'm with you on it, but I'm not attached as you are as a fan. I'm just being honest.
I hope desperately that I'm wrong. I
Yeah.
desperately hope that I'm wrong, and that they can insulate him over the next 10 games, and that they can play the way that they did in the first half and be in somewhat positive game scripts and try to protect him. And they're not going to play against Washington's defensive line every single week. And maybe the circumstances can be better enough over the last 2/3 of the season that those bad habits just don't start to deteriorate even more. Yeah. And just that the slide that we're talking about slows down, and it doesn't look as bad as it did tonight. But it's just hard for me to imagine. It's just hard for me to imagine what would have to happen for it all to turn around.
Yeah.
Like what next offseason would have to look like for it all to turn around. I just don't know. I just feel like it's so bad right now that eventuality and that reality is really difficult to picture.
There's a damn good Ohio State left tackle right now, so maybe you can start looking at those guys. that's where you start.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Like you just try to build it up next year when you have resources, and just say, all right, it's year 3. Like hopefully last year wasn't scar. It's scar tissue. That is the phrase I always go back to: scar tissue.
Yeah.
Where you develop it and it's just impossible to get away from as a quarterback. And Wentz is a great example. And I think that half of a season, the way that it was last year, that's not enough to really develop it. 18 games, 25 games, that might be. And that's my concern. So we'll see what happens, but it's really hard to leave that game and feel optimistic about what the future holds, because it is coming from so many different directions. And that's why it's so hard to solve.
We've talked about this, like not on air, or maybe on air, but we've talked about, me and you just talking, is that when we talk to some teams, are like, oh, why didn't you go with this with a young quarterback? They're like, because our situation is shit. Like, we don't want to drop a guy in here. And this is what it looks like when your situation is so bad as far as offense and everything, that it's just so bad that all those problems just seem compounded. Like, it's just, there's nothing to bail them out. There's no easy button other, the run game actually sometimes looks really nice. But it's 2022.
They actually do some good stuff, and the way that they get movement.
But that's
from
why I'm
guys
optimistic about Getsy. Like Getsy had a couple stuff, like, okay, maybe sneak it down in the red zone when they handed it off. Like, that was maybe a blemish I had with him. It was weird. The last play was under center, which I thought was kind of funny. It was like, okay, wait, but I get it, because it was a quick double move, so I think he wanted the ball in his hands as quick as possible. But it's I like the run game, I do, but it's some of those adjustments are lacking, and Fields doesn't have enough to him right now to overcome that. Like, really not. I know it's like, we haven't even talked about the Commanders, which I think is funny too.
And we can get into that in a second. The last thing I want to say is that this is mostly a product of just complete disalignment organizationally with what your plan is, right? You just talked about it, when you drop a quarterback into this awful situation.
Yep.
The last regime was on its last legs. They had to do something at quarterback. They had to do something. They trade up for a quarterback, and then they trade up for who was supposed to be their starting left tackle in the second round. And they cut their starting left tackle, and then the guy they drafted never turns into a tackle prospect whatsoever. But you have this roster that is just barren. Mm-hmm. It has no talent and no resources. And now you have this quarterback that you went to get out of desperation because you needed to save yourselves. And now you leave the next regime with this hodgepodge of shit that makes no sense.
Terrible.
And that's what you're looking at right now. Could they have done more this offseason? Yeah. Like, they could have signed Austin Corbett or Laken Tomlinson or one of those guys to be their other guard.
This year. Like, they're not looking at this year at all. This is a wash to them. So it's
and that's the problem, is if you're not looking at this year at all, then you're not seeing that the quarterback in his development becomes the most important thing.
Right.
And this is the situation that you're left with. I can understand them not doing that, because that his success or failure doesn't dictate whether or not they keep their jobs or whether or not they succeed. It's human nature. But this is what happens when the situation is so bad. If you aren't hell bent on making it better, where you're going to stretch yourself a little bit resource wise and do some things that maybe aren't that responsible in how you're building the team and what the timeline looks like, this is what you end up with.
Mm-hmm.
And what they've ended up with is not great.
Yeah. Well, most times when the team's punting on a season, they're starting some journeyman quarterback,
Bingo.
or that's the thing. Not a old regime second year dude that like that got taken in the lottery. Like it's a unique situation. We don't see this that often because usually it's someone comes in first year. We got our dude, we got GM, head coach, quarterback. We're all in alignment. And this is what we're doing. This is a unique situation. That's why it's so hard to find precedent with this. Like it really is. Like I've been trying to rack my brain, even this conversation going, like trying to find an example. It's hard.
Well, this happens, but when it's about what you do when it happens, right? To me, the best example of it working out great is what happened with Jared Goff and Sean McVay and the second year of Jared Goff's career with the Rams.
Same GM.
That same GM. So that's also helpful.
Yeah.
Same GM. They go out that first offseason, sign Andrew Whitworth and Robert Woods.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. And they have Sean McVay. And they have a offensive-minded head coach who is at the center of all of this that has proven to be one of the best offensive coaches in football. They did everything they could to salvage what Jared Goff would be. And in part because Les Snead was still there and he had a stake in whether or not Jared Goff failed or succeeded.
Yes.
It just,
hey,
I don't, there's so we could talk about
the human element, buddy.
We could talk about this forever. I don't want to talk about it forever, but it's just, I hope I'm wrong. I hope that he can pull out of this.
Yeah.
Because those splash moments and those flash moments, man, I just want to grab onto them so much, but it becomes harder every week.
You have to be a realist.
It becomes more difficult every week. Yes.
Yeah. No,
and that's what I'm trying to do.
This is the third time I'm bringing it up, but that dig route on the first drive is scary because that's an opening script play.
He had a couple of those. He had a slant on 1st and 10 in the fourth quarter. He's got to throw it.
There's
a few of those.
And then there's times, okay, I think I don't know if it was that it was later and it was going the same direction. So I'm trying to remember if it was the first or third quarter, but I think he took a sack, weird. And then the next play, it was a second and long, and they had a deep curl route, and he dug it, and he hit the guy's shoe. Fields, when he was coming out, one of the things I loved about him was I was like, oh my God, this guy's supremely accurate. Like I was like, this guy's accurate and a freak athlete, and he's big. Holy crap, this is my guy. And if you're going to be, and there's time, he got a lot better later in the game, so it must have been the first quarter. But the fact that he's missing those throws, those are gimmies. It was a deep curl with space because, that defense is not really tightening down on the back end. But he had a throw there. And that's the thing. You can't make those mistakes. The opening touchdown he missed in the red zone. He overthrows that.
God. Didn't even think about that.
You can't miss those. And that's the thing. That's NFL. That's not NFL window, but that's the NFL. You can't. There's only so many layups you get in the game. You can't miss them. You just can't. You have to make 99% of them. You can miss 1 out of 100, but you can't do that, especially in a game like this. And that's the thing. It's funny. I'm like, I was so optimistic and now I'm coming back down. That's what's so hard.
Welcome to my life.
I know. And then he makes some extremely hard throw, and it's ridiculous. This was the thing though, was that this offseason when I went to training camp, they're emphasizing cadence so much and trying to do all the Rodgers stuff. They did that touchdown was an emphasis. And that was a point. This coaching staff's good. I really think this Bears coaching staff is good. Offensive defense. I know you're just in the doldrums right now.
Lighting a match in a blizzard.
I know. But that was a point of emphasis, and they caught him substituting, and they got the free play off of it. So I will say that some coaching does create some points. There was a good example of it right there.
All right, well, let's talk about some good offense and get to Washington and what their situation currently is.
99 yards.
I mean, the Bears, I loved the game plan early on. Every time they got to third down, they're either bringing pressure or they're bringing simulated pressure, and awesome. Washington's offensive line just couldn't figure it out. And
they went against type. I tweeted it. It was they're the 5th lowest blitz team on 3rd and 4th down. I think the first 5 third downs they brought a blitz.
I would be curious how many of those were actually 5-man pressures and how many times they dropped someone out. Yeah, because they dropped Quinn out a couple times. And then the one where they brought Brisker, and Gordon, that was a blitz.
That was awesome.
And then they had a couple where they were dropping out an end, or Morrow would
Brisker's
drop.
And baller, isn't he?
I'm excited what those guys can be, moving forward. And I think the defense is playing okay, considering the defense doesn't really have talent either.
I know.
The defense does not have that many players on it.
Like their best players are like B pluses. Like,
yes.
there's not like a lot of
aces. Jalen Johnson back tonight. He had a couple nice moments. The pass interference on Kyler Gordon was just absolute horseshit. I was yelling at my screen as a fan in a way that I have not yelled at a television as a fan in a very long time.
What's he supposed to do? Run out of bounds?
For me.
Like, honestly, that was terrible. Like, that was rough. I had no skin in this game. And then the next one too was like, the next one too, after that PI, they called another PI on the next play. That's defensive holding. The ball wasn't even in the air.
That one I'm fine with.
But I'm saying it's like, at least get the rule right, refs. Like the ball's not in the air. That's defensive holding. Ball's in the air, then it's PI. Ball's not in the air. That's defensive holding or illegal contact. Sorry, but I hate how refs don't even know their own rules.
I'm doing a terrible job of hosting this podcast, but I'm just
awesome.
I'm just looking at my notes right now. And the 2 times early in the game that they tried to chip help on Braxton Jones, they knocked sweat off of him and he beat him inside. And I was just like, this is a disaster. Even when they're trying to chip, they're not chipping right and they're screwing up plays immediately. So at one point I was like, stop chipping because you're actually doing more harm than good. Harm. And then the times they stop chipping, he just starts getting roasted around the corner. And I'm just like, this is
what do you do?
I'm in hell right now. Anyway, speaking of being in hell, the Bears just spent half an hour talking about it, how we got to this moment. Ron Rivera and this regime is in year 3 of this. Mm-hmm. Carson Wentz is the guy they went out and traded for on purpose.
Yep.
Why they did that? If you read Seth Wickersham and Don Van Natta's story today and who was responsible for that, whole different conversation. I appreciated them talking about that on the broadcast today. Al Michaels saying that he thinks that the NFL wants Dan Snyder to sell. Al Michaels knows people. Al Michaels knows people. So so you guys know,
I've been enjoying Thursday Night Al, by the way. I love
it's the Al show because Kirk's not really bringing much to the table.
He doesn't talk.
It's remarkable to listen to.
He knows what college everyone went to though.
he certainly does. By the way, we did not talk about the Washington situation on today's preview show. Mike and Randy will be talking about that tomorrow on the Football GM. So if you guys want to hear, we're definitely going to talk about that on the feed. So please go check that out. The Washington football operation is in year 3 of this. This is the team that they have built. And they had 99 yards through the air when they scored their second touchdown. Okay. What do you do with this? Yeah. Like if you're this team and this is what the offensive output looks, and Wentz has been bad, but the offensive line has also been horrendous. Like in talking about interior pressure, what their interior is playing like right now is just unforgivable. Yeah. But they've built this team and this is the final result. Like they have to have Velus Jones drop a punt at his own 10-yard line, which that's a whole nother conversation. It's just, he was supposed to be a special teamer and they drafted him in the 3rd round. He's a 25-year-old kick returner and he's fumbled multiple kicks this year.
One of my highlights of the draft show, by the way, with Dane was when that pick happened. And then you looked at us like, what is this? And we were just like, well, he's like 30 and he's a special teamer. So that name will always be like, have a special place in my heart. But yes, go on. Sorry.
So what do you do if you're Washington? Yeah. Like where do you go from here with this offense and what this team currently looks like?
And they just pay Terry and they like don't use him. Like that's like a weird thing too. Like no, it's the offense. I know like with Scott Turner's offense is just like it's all smoke and mirrors and ton of motion and funky formations and everything. But you see the limitations of it because they go so much 4 open. Like they don't even have a tight end attached. And so they can't, they're trying their best, but it's just, this is what it is. But I agree with you because like even watching this defense, that Eagles game, like against this team was really rough. It was like, this is a team, you guys should not be getting like blown out of the water. Like you can't even protect. And this is all hand-picked guys. I know there's some injuries, but there's some hand-picked guys on both sides of the ball. And it's like, okay, the defense looks discombobulated. And then the offense is like, okay, there's no consistency to the offense, which is also speaks to the quarterback a little bit too. But it's like, yeah, I know. And this is not year 1 where it's like, okay, they're trying to figure out who they got. No, these are all hand-picked guys, most of them from Alabama, which is a recurring theme for that Washington team.
I just don't know what happens. Like if this team gets to the end of the year and if they're 6-11 and Wentz is looks like this the entire year. And again, he's just Wentz. Like it just it's not overly bad. It's like you watch some. It's like every once in a while, like the throw he ripped to Curtis Samuel that Curtis Samuel just dropped in cover 2 is like a beautiful throw. He's going to have a couple of those every single game. When he pushes the ball downfield, he looks good. When they have to operate an offense, it doesn't really look very good. And I don't know what the next steps look like, because this is year 3. You went out and got this guy. That's kind of what it feels like. It just, and that's what it felt like coming into the year. It's like this is a team that wins somewhere between like 6 and 9 games, maybe. And based on what they've spent and who they've gone to get, like I think they're too good in some areas to really be awful. But then what happens? I just don't know.
They got a great defensive front, and then it's just okay. Then what else you got? A couple cool.
Those guys are about to get paid.
Yep.
Like I mean, Payne's a free agent. Sweat, it's not going to be too long before they got to start thinking about that. But that's really it. Like they have a great defensive front. William Jackson, the guy they signed in free agency for a ton of money last offseason, is like, I want out of here. Sorry, playing too much zone. It's like, well, you knew you played a lot of zone when you signed him, right?
Signed it here, right? I know.
Yeah,
that's on your agent, bud.
It's on everyone. It's on the team being like, we're gonna sign this guy who's really, really good as a man corner, and we're gonna be a team that plays like a majority quarters. And that's what this is. And I
love the NFL, man. I love the NFL. Like
it's so disjointed. And the problem is Washington is disjointed, even though they've had the same people in charge for the last 3 years. The Bears are disjointed because this is Ryan Poles buying a house that is on fire. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah. It's a what they say on those house fixing shows. It's like a lovable mess. Like you got it out and you could put your own charm onto it. That's what the Bears are. Like the Washington team is just, it's a 2-bedroom in a terrible area.
The problem is that Justin Fields has to live in the house while you're gutting it. That's the concern with this, is that they're gutting the team, but he has to live there. There's no running water. There's no functional stove, but that's where he lives right now. And that's what you're watching every single week.
I knew this game would just be schlock. Like the fact that Al Michaels was, after the first quarter, listing off how many quarters they've watched without a touchdown was like, I'm telling you, I love nihilistic Al. Like it's the best. It's like it's
way more fun when I don't have an emotional investment in what's happening.
Yeah, last week was a little more fun for you when the Colts Broncos brouhaha. I think is a good way to put it. No, it wasn't great. It was not great. I'm glad I don't have an emotional investment. I'll tell you that.
I'll tie it up like this. The Bears fandom thing it's a complicated beast at this stage of things, right? Like I've covered the league for 10 years. I will always have an attachment to it for reasons that are just, I don't know. It goes really deep. Like it's just like how I grew up, and like I think about my dad, and there's like so many elements to it. I think my emotions as they relate to this when I'm watching it is more about disappointment in what I watched of Justin Fields as a college product and what this looks like right now. It's more about the disappointment of watching a quarterback be failed to no fault of his own, and having that kind of compound and push on the worst version of himself.
Right.
And that's hard to watch because the kid, he is clearly tough as shit. And some of the stuff he can do is incredible.
I know.
But he is in a position that it's really, really hard for him to succeed. And it's some his fault and it's some other people's fault. And we can try to make a pie chart of that if we want to, but who cares? Like at the end of the day, like, it really doesn't matter, because this is the final product. And if it goes like this for the next 10 weeks, I don't know what it's going to look like by the end and what you do after it's over.
It's like an archer, little column A, little column B, but this time it's not. It's how it is. And it does stink, because that's the thing with Fields. He was not a perfect prospect. There is no perfect prospect, but it is those blemishes that you have. Hey, holds onto the ball too long, bounces too much. His timing could be a little slow on things. It's tough when you see a situation that's like, he can't get better because it's just the situation, even if he tried to be better. And that's the thing.
He clearly he wants to be better so badly.
Wants to. And it's so frustrating. That's like you said, he was not a scrambler in college. He would do it once in a while, and you'd be like, holy crap, look at this guy move. And the fact that he's probably, I think he has one of the highest, it's like him and Hurts and Allen have the highest scrambling rates. That's one of the reasons I love Fields was I was like, he's a good athlete, but he doesn't want to show it because he wants to be a pocket passer. And he has no chance to even try to be that right now. So now he just has to be a ball player. But that's not what you want to be. You don't want that from your A-tier quarterback or your starting quarterback. It's just a tough place to live, and they have to live in it the rest of the year. I mean, because there's no reinforcements coming. This is the hand you were dealt, and now you got to find a winning hand somehow.
Well, on that note, really appreciate you guys coming to hang out with us tonight. And this is how it goes, sometimes this is how it goes. Thanks, Bear Day. I really appreciate that.
I love we got a Mariners Bears just let down on one day.
Sad
we're never gonna get this a lot, so might as well enjoy it, I guess.
If you guys would, really encourage you to go listen to our Week 6 division or Week 6 preview that is up on the podcast feed right now. Chiefs, Bills, Eagles, Cowboys. We talked about a lot of really fun stuff today. A great show. So really, you guys should go check that out tomorrow if you have not listened to it already. We will be back on Sunday nights to talk about Week 6, talk about Chiefs, Bills, talk about a pretty good slate of games. In the meantime, if you could subscribe to this YouTube channel if you're watching this, I would really appreciate it. We're do these Thursday night recap shows on YouTube. We will be back next Thursday night for Cardinals Saints. Hopefully that will be a little bit better, a little bit more watchable than the last couple of games have been. Until then, really appreciate you guys listening. We'll see you on Sunday night.